Okay, we are. It's almost time to make with the interesting. This is our little pregame. I know we're running a little late today. We've got some folks. They've decided to do some major construction, which is always phenomenal.
ThursdAGE with Owen Casey Stevens, the disembodied voice of Troy, and random noises in the background.
Right. Yeah. So if it sounds like there is a major surgery going on, it's because there is, and
After a year of pandemic, I have to believe this will not be the first time anyone watching us is looking into a camera and hearing noises they don't recognize.
True that, right? That is absolutely the truth. I'm seeing some eyeballs in. Folks, tell me if you can hear us, so we may commence with the.
Well, Charlotte is commenting on our commentary, so clearly she hears us.
Good deal.
I mean, at this point, it is so ubiquitous that weird things happen that there are coffee commercials making fun of doing the wrong thing while having a video meeting while working from home.
Exactly. All right, we're going to make. How about we do this? Let's take a look at Owen's face. Owen, say a thing or two. Hello, my friend.
Hello, Troy. This is me saying a thing or two.
Look at all the people.
I do like people.
Yeah, Jacob.
Well,
Blackmore
okay.
says
Actually,
go ahead.
I'm not convinced it's true that I like people. I like persons. There are a number of persons I am very, very fond of. People as a concept, I am much iffier about.
I am hearing that we have a sound, but we have no visual.
Oh, I'm getting visual.
I am as
well.
well.
Not on Facebook. I'm not.
Why Facebook? Just Jason says you are fond of me, Owen. You have her image too.
Oh, there we go. Now it's on Facebook.
Ah, good. Who knows why that
now people
happened?
can have the full imaginary me having blearily sprayed shower water in my face experience.
Okay, good. Looks like both Facebook and the YouTubes are seeing us and hearing us. And hello, everybody. Good to see you. I see David Body's here. Always nice. Jacob Blackmon is here. Jason Waltman, Charlotte, of course, Stan. It's just not. It's not a ThursdAGE without some Stan, without some Stanage. Terry Advent, thank you so much for giving us the thumbs up on the audio. You'll be hearing some stuff in the background, hammering. Hello, Rain. Good to see you. Good to be seen and heard as well. You know, Owen, it has been a busy week, huh?
It has been quite the week. I mean, in fact, it's going to be busy for a while in here around Fantasy Age Central, or whatever I want to call this particular corner of the house where I work. We've got the playtest wrapping up. We got surveys that'll be going out shortly, which the delay in the surveys is entirely my fault, folks. So don't blame anyone but me. We had a conversation with some core playtesters last night, which went really, really well, got some questions asked and answered, some of which, honestly, I did not have answers for until I was on the spot. The way my brain works, I sometimes come up with an answer for something when someone is specifically grilling me about something that in the background I've known I would have to address one way or the other eventually. But until that moment comes, sometimes I don't know what the answer is going to be. So that kind of Q&A thing can be very useful for me to sort of gel and solidify my thought process.
Context, right? It kind of makes you think, how will this work in the context of people actually playing? Sorry if I sound distracted here every once in a while. I guess they are installing an entirely new building upstairs.
Installing? So they brought the building along on a flatbed.
Yes, yeah. And I think it was a building filled with nails and wood and some, I don't know, possibly dead bodies that they're dragging around.
They heard you like construction, so they're constructing some construction to your construction.
Yes, I love this. Actually, this is what I should have went with. Everybody who's watching, they're like, we expected to hear the construction of, Fantasy Age in the background. So that's what you hear. You hear all of the gnomes and what do we call our friends that kind of every once in a while pop up behind you? You can kind of hear them in the background over there. The high pitched voice. What are they?
Oh, the lomelings.
The lomelings. Yeah, yeah. You have all the
The the
lomelings are
the
hard at work.
lomelings. Most of the lomelings are currently asleep. We're having a cold snap out here, and they were totally ready for spring. I've got some lomelings working, but they're largely doing it quietly in the background. Although, yeah, there's one lomeling.
Are they Constructicons? Yes, they are. Mole people. That's right, Jason. Yeah, mole people.
Yeah, we do not use the term mole people. We stick with lomeling.
Gotcha.
And no, they are absolutely not Constructicons because those are villains from Transformers.
Are they really? Is there Constructicons in the Transformer
Oh gosh,
canon?
they're one of the primary sets of villains in Transformers because the Constructicons are one of the first, maybe the first combiner Transformer robot, where the 5 of them can form Devastator, the largest and most powerful of the robots from the early system, with the possibly argumentable Omega Supreme, who might be more powerful, but I'm going way off into sci-fi 80s geekery now, which is if we want that show, we should get Crystal on here, and
Agreed.
she'll do a
Honestly,
much better
I
job
do
than I
want to
will.
do a crossover Mutants and Masterminds Monday, ThursdAGE, event spectacular. We'll talk about that later, but I do want to also thank our friend from France who says, let's see, I believe you're from France. I could be totally wrong. But here's what I've heard. The question is, what is the plan for VTT with Fantasy Age? And as luck should have it, I have an answer for you. The plan is to incorporate, to upload content and to craft for several different VTT platforms a Fantasy Age experience.
We did seriously consider the traditional game company approach of declaring we were going to have our own VTT, having screenshots of it that looked wonderful, be really vague about the release date, and then never actually do it. But we decided to go a different route and just make material for VTTs that are already functioning and popular.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. When in doubt, just do the thing. Yeah. So we've got a team of people, a couple of them hanging out in the chat room, that are working on this. To give you just a general VTT update, we are working on the gate for us is character sheets. Character sheets all kind of key into the official content, and so we're working on that right now. And the team is, Owen, I love surrounding myself with people who are just brilliant. And the VTT team, they are Charlotte, Jonesy, Pook, and each with their own brilliance and 3 remarkable human beings to work with, and also very, very smart. And so that is a double bonus. And as far as timing goes, I'm not super comfy leaning into how that's going to work. It's really just the notion that we've got to do it right, and with something as important as the character sheet, which is the free aspect, like you get to utilize that, but it is the key that unlocks all the content and mechanisms and things like that. So
we want to make this game as accessible to people as possible, and it is very clear that virtual tabletops are going to be a very important part of people playing games, probably forever now, and until the next genius thing comes along. The flip side of that is that companies have a certain amount of momentum and work procedures have a certain amount of momentum. And anytime you're adding something radically new, it's not that the momentum means you can't do it, but it means that it is both a little tricky to squeeze it in, and that you don't have the same level of experience and expertise saying thing A will take this many weeks. That's on top of all of the potential problems of being a game company in a pandemic, where you have to worry about shipping being borked and things being left on docks and printers potentially being shut down because they're having a surge where they are, and shifting gears because you want to do more electronic content like PDFs above and beyond even VTTs, all while trying to get another core rulebook out the door and do the normal process of, making
Creating.
things. Because
Yeah.
if we don't make things, we can't get people to give us money for those things. So we are absolutely on it. It's important. We see it. And we would rather admit we don't know when we'll be done than give you a time that turns out to be wrong.
Yeah.
Once again, we're trying to not go the traditional game company route. So
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, and we could fill you full of platitudes. But speaking of platitudes, I want to say I do like a good platitude. I appreciate it when people say kind and decent things. And I'm just a sucker for compliments, especially for the people that, when we're doing these programs, we get a lot of questions and a lot of, sometimes criticisms and that kind of things. But I just want to say, Jason Waltman, you're on fire. Jason says, I admire Owen's Star Wars work. Troy is a demigod. And I do prefer demigod. I mean, a demi-deity, I think, is probably one I'm more. And then also, I like Owen's ideas for creating of a pulp age book. I say bring on more compliments. Right? No, let's
I
normalize compliments.
you're going to have to take up with Crystal whether we can normalize compliments or
Oh,
not.
yeah, no. I mean,
That's not my department, man.
no, absolutely. Yeah, it is wonderful and also challenging to work with someone who is so brilliant but doesn't want to hear about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no kidding. Crystal Frazier is literally the person I once heard tell me that she didn't think she was qualified to be on a panel about imposter syndrome.
Therein,
Which
yeah, that is, yeah.
is the most perfect example of someone that does not understand how brilliant they are.
And also just so generous as well with recognizing the people around her and incorporating people into the process. It's a true delight. But also just don't tell her about it. Don't tell her we're talking about this. I don't see her in the chat. Here's a question right now. Let's see. What do you imagine for the Fantasy Age range right after the release of the new core rulebook?
That's a great question. And to answer it, I'm going to give you a little insight as to how things work sometimes in the game industry with the creation of products. Normally, we would have a really solid idea of what the next book was, and the next book was, and the next book was. And we actually do know what we're releasing next before the core rulebook, which we haven't been talking about because the core rulebook is obviously our focus right now. But when we're past a playtest stage and there's maybe not as much interesting stuff to talk about with the core rulebook for a while, we'll be able to discuss that. But in this case, because I'm doing the playtest, the time I would normally have been spending getting the next book rolling is instead being used to double down on development and consideration of this book. And then when I pass that off and we're looking at text done, pencils down, but you have to worry about layout and ordering art and making sure it fits in the page count. And then eventually it'll go to the printer and a printer will print it. And then it will be put on a slow boat. And then it will eventually come back here. And then it'll get to warehouses. And all of these steps have their own things that can be impacted from anything from pandemic to international politics. That is when we will nail down for sure what the next thing is. So I can't tell you what the next thing is. I can tell you stuff that I am envisioning that I would like to get to. So first of all, I would like more adventure support. And we will probably talk about one way we're going to get adventure support into the hands of players next week. We'll talk about that next. Great question. There are going to be ways to get more adventure content in people's hands, hopefully beyond just us producing everything. But I would like to do some adventure support. There's some great stuff. There's some short things for Fantasy Age, and there are some great how to put together adventure things like in the campaign guide. But I would really like to say here are some standalone, maybe link togetherable adventures I mean, it may be that the longest adventure we have right now is Death in Freeport, which we revised from the old Death in Freeport. And there are other adventures we could revise, some of which very few people have ever seen because of the timing of releasing them. So that's a possibility, sort of for quick support. But I would also like to design some things from scratch to say this is what Fantasy Age is good at. This is how it handles these things, and kind of create a not just an adventure, but a roadmap for what adventures should look like. So that's one thing I want to do, and I want to do more than one. Right? I want to figure out how to do adventure support. Be that we've talked about having a Patreon, so there might be adventure support on a Patreon. We might well do a series of encounters, and they can be linked or standalone or whatever. We might do a regular release, like have an adventure a year or something like that. But there's definitely stuff that I want to put out there. I also want to do more setting content, and some of that is going to be similar to the setting content that we will release before the core rulebook. But also we are touching on a new setting sort of in the core rulebook, and I want to be able to expand and spread out from that and show people how you can both use it and grow from it and expand on it. And that obviously, world building content and campaign and setting content can go hand in hand with adventure content. I am excited about doing some more rules expansion things, but I don't think that'll be next. That'll be further on down the road. Just like there's emergent behavior that caused us to say, okay, let's do a new core rulebook that handles some things somewhat differently for Fantasy Age, but still works with all our old content. My expectation is that after that core rulebook has been out for a year or so, that there will be new emergent behavior and new ideas that have grown out of it. We'll be able to say, okay, well, we never thought of that. We've now, got this feedback that has sparked ideas from us. Here's some new stuff we can put together and roll that out. But basically, good ideas we have right now that are rules types ideas, we're trying to fit in the core rule book. So there's going to be some stuff that doesn't fit, but there won't be a whole book's worth. So that'll be later on down the line. And then I like the idea of doing some hybrid products, possibly, right? Like saying, okay, here is a book that has one specific setting and one new rule for that setting and one adventure for that setting.
Yeah.
And some new player content focused on that setting, and have all of that be things where we say, here is a multi-function book that covers a lot of different stuff that can also show you how you can do those things yourselves. Because we'll never make as much content as some people want,
and
no matter what,
absolutely,
right? So
yeah, and one of the things that we will be doing now, just to quell any rumors, we have not at any point discussed selling the Age Creators Alliance content via our web store, but
no.
we will be doing that through DriveThruRPG. And in the very near future, we are going to have a very special guest from DriveThruRPG, and we're going to talk about the Age Creators Alliance with gusto. It's going to happen. And I know folks have been waiting for some time, but the time is now. We're getting it together. But that's for you, Jason. Thank you for that question, for sure. And I like David Body's idea. You can release some fantasy locations called Zones of Danger.
That is, first of all, it's funny. Secondly, it's not a terrible idea. So that is very much the sort of thing that we could look at doing. I am excited by the amount of creativity and kit bashing and homebrew stuff that Fantasy Age people do, and I never want to take away the framework that encourages that. But I also don't want to leave people to only do that if either they don't have time or they want even more than they can create themselves, whatever. And that's a narrow path to walk. And it's one of the reasons why I like having ThursdAGE, for example, because this is a weekly format for getting feedback. Someone said I want a layers too. I'm a huge fan of layers. I could easily see doing layers too. But again, it probably wouldn't be the next thing. I really suspect that the next thing will be either adventure content or campaign content or world building content or both. But that's not set in stone. That isn't even written in pencil yet. That's sort of chalked on the wall behind me with Eldritch runes, hoping that something good will come of it.
I thought that said liars too.
Well, as we know, dragons have a percent in liar. So
Very true. Very true. Joey Trapp says BX age.
it says what?
B/X age. I'm not sure I'm getting the.
Oh, basic to that's a D&D reference.
I see. I see.
Maybe. I also saw someone ask about space age, and I have to say, ThursdAGE is specifically our fantasy age live stream, and if we were working on a space age product, or we're going to in the future, if that's something that we thought was a brilliant name and we have to do something with at some point, that would probably be coming out of the modern age group, since while it is not universally the case that space travel is more common in modern forward settings than fantasy backward settings, there are certainly some that do it. That is the norm, and I that wouldn't be something that we would discuss in any great length on this show, even if it was something we were hoping desperately would happen and had brilliant people working on.
Oh, I have. My mind has been snagged. Our friend Peter Bergman says, "How about a series of zines, in quotes, filled with community content on themes like pulp, horror, sword and sorcery, post-apocalypse? Call it Zine Age and use it to channel creativity and availability." That is, that's thought-provoking.
That's not a terrible idea.
It's really not. I mean, no promises, of course, but but you have set our minds alight, if you will. I was thinking of sort of imagine a series or a sort of a whole new line around, maybe you're like a gig, you're driving for Lyft or one of the other, sort of driving, or like maybe a cab, and we can call it Cab Age. Cabbage.
So there's a Avatar: The Last Airbender joke in there, which I'm not going to do, other than the fact that I just did it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yes. We already do Cheese Age every day.
I mean, there are definitely ideas that we could draw upon for more age books, right? Like I have notes for things called Iron Age and Bronze Age, right? For that matter, if I were to do a pulp book, I would be very tempted to call it Atomic Age. The name lends itself to much better names than ThursdAGE, and we went with that.
How dare you, sir? How very dare you? That name is pure genius, and I will celebrate it every day until my dying breath. So
but that's sort of those are all kind of down the road types ideas. When there's this tricky thing when you're trying to plan out a line for a game, and this is a little behind baseball and people may not care, but some of you asked. We can only do so many books, and there are a lot of reasons for that. The core reason is that any given game line only has so much fan base, and that fan base only has so much disposable income. So theoretically, if there were enough people that we could have a new hardback book out every week that would buy it, we could eventually staff up to the point where we could do that. But that's just not the case. And in fact, there are collectors out there who, if they can't collect everything you do, get frustrated and give up the line entirely.
Yes.
True. So sometimes putting out too much content actually gets you less sales per unit. And what you need as a company is more sales per per product, so that the cost of producing those is reduced.
I was going to say real quick. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say one of the things I appreciate about your perspective on this is that, and I think it comes about as a necessity of being a small business content producer, and that is, you got to do the what can I get done at a quality that I can focus, and what can I get done in a way that is accessible. And accessibility also means, if we're just a fire hose of content, first, quality is gonna dip, and but then we also just have to take into account, there's only so much content you can fit into the fire hose, and is it worth the burnout when it gets to people? There's only so much time in a day. Wouldn't it be a wonderful world where everybody all they did was just play games from dusk till dawn? And sometimes that is the case, but not every day.
If the world was a place where people just played games from dusk till dawn, none of us would be writing and illustrating and laying out and printing games. So everything
Sure.
would have to be
Or
homebrew,
doing
which would
laundry
be
or sweeping,
fine.
or yeah, exactly.
So, keeping that in mind, we can only do so many books in any given moment, and sometimes circumstances like global pandemics work against you, and a book has its date pushed way back, and you got to make some choices. And in the case of Fantasy Age Core Rulebook, where you're desperately trying to make the choice to not rush this project, to take our time, get it done right. One of the things I learned from Chris Pramus, our president, is that if something is late, it's only late until you put it out, and if it's bad forever.
Yeah.
So if you have to choose between late and bad, when you choose late, once you put it out, that problem's over. If you choose bad, that problem goes forever until you put out a new book that replaces it. So I agree that in general, late is better than bad. The problem is that when it's something that like the core rulebook, late means that we're still working on it and no one's paying us for it.
Right.
And obviously you have to have money for a business to be able to go forward. So I would really like to be able to just put out everything all at once, but instead we will have to plan when are the beats where the material we're producing is the thing that most of the fans will be ready for and want and excited by. And that means that you don't want to do a Fantasy Age core rulebook and then immediately Iron Age and then immediately Bronze Age and then immediately Psychic Dinosaurs versus Martian Tripods, because that is the same sort of thing. Those are all, setting books with special rules one after the other, and then you haven't put out the adventure content. So you need to sort of hop back and forth between, okay, here's our core rule book. Okay, here's an adventure. Okay, here is, as a random example, a mixed bestiary and layers book, or maybe we have a book on troops and squads or whatever that you can use to augment existing adventures and settings. And we can put some more information in there, but also people can use it for their homebrew. Okay, after that, here's another adventure. Okay, maybe now we can do something like Iron Age or Psychic Dinosaurs versus the Martians or whatever. And you can plan that out to a certain extent, and you got to start working these books well before they come out. There are ways to sneak things in there faster, VTT content, PDF content, things that don't have to go to the printer. But they generally, there's a reason why people still print books economically. So you got to be very careful that you're not spending resources in something that doesn't have a high enough return. And a lot of that, as the lead developer, my job is to figure out what I think it should be, pitch it, but it isn't my money, right? I don't own the company. So ultimately the company will decide not just what is best for this line, but what are we doing with Mutants and Masterminds? What are we doing with Modern Age? What are we doing with Sword Chronicle, whatever. And that all has to be put into a giant spreadsheet. In fact, when we could get together physically in person, there was literally the scheduling phase where we would look at everything the company is supposed to be doing for a year. And let me tell you, the one that was done just before the pandemic hit, that schedule didn't last long.
Yeah, it really
Because
didn't. We just was
everything changed. So you got to be flexible and fast on your feet. And that means that sometimes you have to say, well, we cannot do this product that might be the perfect product. What can we do? What can we do? Of what we can do, what is the best choice?
right. And what I do enjoy about our process is we have embraced. I mean, this is 20 years in the making. First of all, into our 21st year, but there is a concerted effort to engage our community and to say, hey, this is what's happening. This being very transparent and all of that, and I think it's also reflected in the tests we've been doing, and that is, here you go, folks. Dive in, share your thoughts, and I have to say, I'm both, as somebody who can sort of separate themselves from the having created the content or having consumed the content, both very personal experiences as it relates to playtesting. Everybody is just on their very, very best behavior. You and the people who are playing. It's really nice to see. And having done a few of these, it can go south. But there's something really magical here in that mix. I really appreciate.
And some of these questions will be things that we may address some of these things in ways that we haven't even thought of yet, right? So when I became the lead developer for Fantasy Age, there was no Green Ronin stream of any kind. So that's something that Troy and Crystal and Steve pioneered with Mutants and Masterminds Monday, and then we came along with ThursdAGE later, which would not be possible without Troy. And so that's an option that we did not originally have. There's now a Mutants and Masterminds Patreon, which I think is going very, very well. I'm super impressed by it.
Yeah, we're having fun over there.
Once my eye does not have to be on the core rulebook, some sort of either Fantasy Age or broader age Patreon might make sense. It might be a way to get content to people. And, I've literally seen some people say, remind Owen in 8 months to write a Victorian tripod. That's exactly the sort of thing that we might well be able to do in a Patreon if we're just saying, hey, here's a tripod, here's some things to do it with. And, some people like sci-fi in their fantasy and some don't.
What's a tripod in the context of what's the tripod in the context of a...
Martians from War of the Worlds fought in tripods.
Oh,
so
right. That's kind of what jumped in my mind. That's what it evoked, but I wasn't sure. Here's something interesting, and maybe Joey, a good friend, and also just a brilliant contributor to community over there on the grad server for Discord. What are your thoughts on building compatibility layers with external content partners? Let's see, Phage, Numenera with MCG, conversions for old current D&D to make content more compatible, for example.
So I am not opposed to it. Anytime you're getting multiple companies and therefore multiple IP owners involved in one project, that's tricky. Now, it's obviously not impossible because right now, Savage Worlds Pathfinder is being worked on, which saying that sentence used to make as much sense as saying poker chess, right? You're just cramming words together and there's no real combination available there. Although now I desperately want to invent poker chess. But anyway,
can't stop thinking of it yet.
So one of the trickinesses is the fan base, right? Frequently people that want Numenera are playing Numenera and people that want Fantasy Age are playing Fantasy Age, and so you can create a product that no one wants instead of one that everyone wants.
All right, two great tastes that aren't so good together. Yeah,
exactly right. Sometimes it's chocolate and peanut butter, and sometimes it's
pickles and milk,
fried liver and vanilla ice cream.
Oh, yeah.
So that's one possibility. The other thing is that the licensing is tricky. Getting the work balance is tricky, and the other thing is that means more people need to make money on each product. And I don't know if I've ever made this point before, but budgets tend to be tight in the RPG industry. Now, sometimes there are great synergies that can work together. Like if we were doing a conversion of a product of theirs and they already had a whole bunch of gorgeous art and part of what we're paying them for is that art, then we don't have to pay artists for art, for new art, right? Whatever the licensing is for the art would obviously have to be followed. So even that is the sort of thing that can confuse it.
Yeah.
I am also of the opinion that is the sort of thing that when I was talking about, the timeliness of products, it makes the most sense to do after you've covered sort of the most popular gimme products. So monsters are popular, adventures are popular, campaign content is popular. I've got an idea for a big book of magic that would have magic items and spells and rituals and magic tattoos and all of that stuff, which would, be down the road a bit. But that is the sort of thing that tends to be a popular core fan base product. And after that, in my opinion, is when you tend to look at these broader things. Now, it's a little easier if you're talking about doing things that we own, right? So if we wanted to take... Freeport's an obvious example. If we wanted to do a great big Fantasy Age Freeport book, that is all within our legal wheelhouse. So you don't have to bring in contracts with other companies and figure out a profit split, et cetera, et cetera. And Green Ronin has a long track record of interesting settings and material. And, theoretically, I could do Fantasy Age Orc, for example, which... honestly, I would probably release on April 1st some year if I was going to do it. But honestly, it could be done, right? We just have a new orc stunt table. And then we declare that you get stunt points in orc phage, orc age, whether you succeed or fail, because orcs don't know when they have failed at something.
Peter,
Therefore, they get the stun points anyway. So there are ways to do those things. I don't have a conceptual objection to them, but they are a bigger behind the scenes workload that I think most people realize. And as a fan, when I was way back in the 80s, when I first ran into Space Opera, the RPG, for example, I was super excited because there were things in there I could use. Oh, look, there's a psychic crystal. I can use that to make Lensman from E. Smith's Lensman series. Oh, look, there are laser swords. I can use that as lightsabers. And obviously, those things were inspired by that original material. And then as fans, we could just say, well, this is almost how a lightsaber works, but I'll just make this change. And you can do Star Wars using Space Opera. But that's something you can do as a fan that you cannot, as a company, release because someone else owns the rights to actual lightsabers and Jedi and all of that stuff.
There's a question on the floor right now. Worst board game matchups, and I was going to say this extended beyond sort of board games, but Jax and Twister.
Ouch.
Yeah. Genevieve says Candyland and Supremacy or Squad Leader and Trouble. Yeah, those are two bad mixes for sure. I like what Peter.
See, I'd be doing like Candyland and Secret Hitler. I think would be
that. Yeah, that's that came to mind as well. Never play the game of Clue with Mystery Writer because they take a full hour to tell you how they murder Miss Scarlet, says Jason Waldman. Absolutely, and I'm looking at this. Peter Bergman, you are kind of an idea factory, and I like it. We just need to sort of make sure that those ideas only go into one channel and that you sign a waiver. Giving those ideas to the zeitgeist, and by that I mean us. I'm just joking.
Right.
Ooh, you just turned. Wow, you are. What's happening? Can everybody see Owen is phasing out? Somebody's trying to beam him away.
Oh God!
You are. It's kind of cool. You're kind of sort of a version of that "Take on Me" video. Take on me, where you're sort of made out of. You're kind of drawn and looking a little scribbled, but you're back now, which is good.
It's okay. I have retained my physical form. Everything's fine.
Nice try, aliens. ThursdAGE. Yeah. So phenomenal ideas. Yeah. Gerardo Sanchez says abduction. Not this time. Not on my watch. So he's gone pink, says Genevieve. So when we're looking to the future of the playtest, one of the things that Rain asked earlier, and I think it's important, so we have some people who are picking up or weren't able to necessarily fit a playtest because it takes a bit of time to gather your people and to do that kind of thing. What do we do? Guess who? Haunting at House on the Hill, says Rain. That is brilliant. But when is the playtest? When do we call it done as far as the testing, having people kind of massage the content and get in there and give you feedback?
It's probably going to be done right near the end of this month.
Okay.
And so like 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks is the first, and I know that's April 1st, and we'll have a ThursdAGE, but I'm serious. And I think in 2 weeks, that doesn't mean if you found a major thing after that, you couldn't shoot it to us, but the window of being able to make changes shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. So
yeah, if you're looking at
surveys,
useful, yeah.
Right. The primary surveys go out, and then I would say for 2 weeks, anyone that had not had a chance to do anything with it yet can do stuff and then fill out the survey, or if they discover a thing, put in an addendum, right? Just send us a note. But then after that, we will not really have time to take it, consider it, revise it, edit it, lay it out, etc. And again, if you find something simple and obvious, like, hey, the assassin specifically mentioned has a stunt, and that stunt doesn't exist in the book, yeah, shoot us that note whenever you find it, because we can always make it errata if it's too late.
Sorry to pause you here. Alex says, I'm here late, but I'm here to support Owen. There seems to be some connectivity issue that maybe people aren't able. We lost some feed and some sound. That is purely network related, and I don't know. It kind of happened right around the time that you were trying to be beamed out. So give us a shout out here, folks, if you can see and hear. I'm showing everything should be functioning on our end. FPS is great and bitrate is on target. So we're going to pretend at the very least as though things are just fine. And so I apologize for that, but we'll blame, Facebook. It's their fault probably.
Well,
Seems
I'm going to
okay
blame
now.
whatever aliens tried to beam me out of my
That's
chair
what's going
because,
on. I don't want to alarm anybody, but yeah, that's just they're coming to steal Earth's best minds.
oh, wow. But
That's
they're
what.
not starting from the top very clearly.
There was something I was going to ask you, and it was brilliant, and I've completely forgotten it in this battle to keep Owen on terra firma. Um, so 2 weeks, and this is I don't want to put too fine a point on this, but get your games together. There's a couple people who were added late, and we do that for people we care about. But I will say, Owen, we gave some pretty good lead-in time for this. We were there's I mean, we could have come to your home and been less effective. Yeah. So yeah,
Playtests are always a tricky thing, right? Because one of the true tests of a game is that it plays well without the game's creator there to explain it. Um, but there also comes a point where you're like, okay, well, if people are confused about rule A, then you're not getting real feedback about rules B through M.
right.
So there is a point to having a feedback loop, especially if it is in a written format where you're able to yourself look back and say, okay, what did I say? What were people asking a question about? What was unclear? But this is so far one of the smoothest play tests I have been involved with 24 years of game design under my belt.
Yeah, and there's quite a few people, and there's quite a bit of the cerebral nature of feedback specific to tabletop roleplay games. I think is refreshing. I really enjoy it. It's not just my monitor has emitted colors, which I really dig. But the other thing I was going to say, Monopoly and Risk. That's a really bad mix.
I actually really love that. So we call the game War Bonds,
Yes.
and you are going around trying to build enough money to pay for your military maneuvers, which fail if you can't back them, but you can mortgage units and you can sell arms to other countries. That's actually a great idea for a board game.
I would think at the end of it, you would have no friends or family. To me, it's sort of tantamount to like open mouth chewing and close talking. Like,
I mean, that's just means it's like diplomacy.
true. Nothing brings out the rage in my family than Monopoly. It just hits all of
Well,
our.
Monopoly is simply a terrible game. I mean, Monopoly was literally created to show how
Yeah.
land ownership and landlordism destroys happiness. So, no shock that it does an excellent job of that.
Right. Yeah, that is very true. And Risk is boy, that game. I just how many friendships on this planet have been strained to breaking because of that ridiculous little game, massive game. But yeah, so we are nearing the end of our program.
Already,
Yeah, I know, Owen. I know. I also know that there's so much work to be done, and you are burning the candle at both ends and doing all the things, and so I don't want to keep you too long. What are some thoughts that we might have about? So we've talked about the 2 weeks. I'm delighted that we are, relatively within the range of the schedule. I mean, like
yeah.
we're looking at all things lining up. Are there, I noticed that when we did the dev chat yesterday, which we will be making public in some form or fashion, as far as like letting people kind of see what the conversation's all about. But you can go see that if you go to the grad Discord server. The chat is there and open for people to check out. But I feel like maybe at this stage, the feedback really ought to change or morph into something less esoteric and maybe less intellectual and maybe a little more functional. I don't mean to say functional, but
And the survey is going to hit the points that are the specific details we want. Things like, do you do you think that that there are enough talents? Do you think there are enough specializations?
Okay.
Do you believe, are there any talents that you think are wildly underpowered, wildly overpowered, uninteresting, unclear? That's the sort of thing that we will cover in the survey. So, and then there's just practical matters like, if a rule says you got to have bandages to heal someone and you don't know where to find bandages, those are practical things you can tell people about.
Fantastic. Yeah. So it's really practical, less theoretical. Got to get the details, the facts, and if something's specifically, legitimately busted, help us unbust it.
But busted or unfun.
That's yeah. We want to fun it. We want to
Games should be fun.
That is that's a truth, I think. Sort of a fundamental human truth. Fun should be fun.
And the important thing after that is games should be fun for everybody. Because I don't want to make it sound like I am the tyrant of determining what is fun, and if you're not doing it my way, you're doing it wrong. That is absolutely not my goal. I want to create a framework where the most people can have the most fun. And if you're doing something that I wouldn't find fun, but you all are having a good time, that's great. At the same time, make sure that everyone around you is actually having a good time, not just like 2 out of the 5 of you and everyone else is just schlepping along.
I feel badly now. I've invested a lot of money in this gold crown and scepter, and on the crown it says Arbiter of Fun. But
I mean, there are absolutely people in this industry who will buy that off you. Don't worry about that.
Oh, sure, yeah, that is true, and they'll want to buy it. They will definitely, certainly want to buy it. That is, yes, actually, Charlotte. One thing I do love is Charlotte always picks up on the charm and the wit and the fun that I bring. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us for this, nearly an hour of ThursdAGE with, the nicest man in the biz and that other guy. Owen, a true pleasure working with you on the playtest and seeing you work. You have a remarkable ability to do some of this extemporaneous stuff, but really kind of pull from a true structure, and I dig that, and I know that our community does too. I can see it in their reactions, and so we'll do more of that. Groovy. All right, friends. Do me a favor, everyone. Don't forget about Monday. It's Mutants and Masterminds Monday. We've got Crystal Frazier, who is the lead developer for Mutants and Masterminds, and we've got Steve Kenson, the originator of the line. And then, but I have a mission for you all. I need you to do a couple things. I need you to go to our YouTube channel, Green Ronin Publishing, and I need you to follow. And I need you to, so you need to subscribe, and I need you to give us all the, give us all the love. Like, watch some videos, leave them on the background, post messages about how much you enjoy it and how much fun you're having, and then tell your friends to do the same. If anybody wants to be rude, you tell them to cork it, because we don't have space for that. Go ahead.
Troy?
Yes.
Did you see on Facebook that we've got Stan cartoons for this stream?
Hecka no, I did not. I'm not even. Well, then
everyone hold on a minute.
Oh yeah, everybody wait. Just wait. This is important. But but do that, and then the other thing that we've got too, and it is, and I don't want anyone to be surprised, but Pinterest is a really great resource for tabletop roleplay stuff. It is very, very interesting that is the case. But look for us on Pinterest, and you will find, it's actually meme, but you will find us on, I'm getting over that, Facebook. And but no, you'll find us under Ronan Troy. That's me. We have got our art out there. We're making pins, we're doing the whole thing, and I love it. I'm doing the download, and while I'm doing that, regale us, if you will, of a tale. Did you get to talk to your magic piece Because I know we said we wanted to talk about magic a little bit, and
I didn't. So while you're downloading
yes,
stuff, I'll talk
please.
about magic for a minute. So in the new core rulebook, as we are currently playtesting, there are a couple of important changes to magic, and some of those are things that showed up in the companion, and some of them are brand new. Uh, there are ways currently in the core rulebook for people other than mages to get access to a little bit of magic power, and some of those are things that we're adding to ancestries. So, for example, gnomes are going to, assuming it survives the playtest, have the option to talk to animals as something that they learned being gnomes, even if they are not gnome mages. And then there are also some specializations that allow you to be an arcane dabbler and pick up just a little bit of magic. And to keep things fair, there's also a weapon training option where you can pick up one weapon outside of your starting weapons, then eventually a whole weapon group, et cetera, et cetera. But we are also changing the rules about what happens if you fail the test to cast a spell. And here's the thing. It is not fun to have so many fail points for something you're trying to do that you are more likely to fail than succeed, and you are burning resources to make the effort. So right now, most spells that have an effect outside of just affecting you have a test to successfully cast the spell, and then you have to make an attack roll or the enemy gets a resistance roll. And that means that you could, not like a fighter who can swing a sword and miss, but he has not run out of sword, and there was just that one chance to miss. Mages frequently are in the situation where I don't know if this spell will work at all, and some spells are much harder to cast than others. And even if it does work in that I've cast it and I think I succeed, I can have this moment where, despite the fact I think I succeeded, I then miss my attack roll. Now, we're not going to mess with the resistances and the missing attack rolls. That's part of the balance of it. And burning resources is why you get to do these impressive things that people with swords can't. But we are making one important change, which is that when you fail your test to cast a spell, currently under the playtest, and these rules are subject to change, you will have a choice at that point to either drop the spell, in which case you lose half the magic points it would have taken to cast, but not all of them, or you can push, and then you have to spend a number of additional magic points equal to the amount you missed the roll by, and you successfully cast the spell. And that means that your magic point cost is tied to your success. So if I fail, I do lose some magic points. There is a risk there. Some of that resource goes away, but not as much as if I had successfully cast it. But if it's really, really important I cast it, or if I only miss the roll by 1 or 2, I can throw some additional resources at it and succeed. And so far, that appears to be a more satisfying experience for mages, that they have another level of choice that they can get into. I can conserve my resources. I can decide that I'm just going to let that spell go. I only burn a little bit, and it doesn't feel as bad as if all my points are gone and I accomplish nothing. So it's almost like you accomplish reserving half even when you fail. It's not as bad as nothing happening. Or you can decide this is important, or I've got the magic points, or whatever. And that also means that the question of accruing magic points versus accruing a good roll on your magic test is a design choice that can be something that you consider when building your character. Do I plan to just get really good at all my rolls, or do I want to assume that anytime it's important, I'll pour magic points into it and make it happen? And that is obviously a little more complicated. Luckily, at low levels, you don't have a whole lot of spells, so hopefully you'll get a grip on it easily. But it is something that has evolved out of seeing some of the other ways that age systems have handled magic, and it's something that in my playtest group was very, very popular and did not seem to lead to everyone playing a mage or mages being ridiculously powerful. It can be very tricky when you're trying to say, okay, this person's peak ability to do stuff is way up here, and they've got options no one else does, and then their standard abilities down here, but they can't maintain this. Playing with that balance can be tricky, but so far, the feedback is very positive, and we might tweak it further, or we don't want to break the game. But I'm very excited about those changes because, again, they're things that apply to everyone equally. So if you have a opponent spellcaster from a previous adventure and you're playing with the core rulebook change won't impact that character. They will just use the same rules from the core rulebook that everyone else does, and we don't have to rewrite them. So it's entirely backwards compatible.
All right, I'm going to had myself on mute so that we didn't have to. The cartoon that Stan has prepared, the cartoons, both
Yeah, multiple.
very
And I got to
appropriate.
say, we are very fortunate in the fan base on this show because Stan obviously doing cartoons is a really nice extra bonus. And then we've got people, Liz Courts and Jacob Blackman and Charlotte. We got people that have a lot of actual information about the game industry and other things, and having them here elevates this show significantly.
It sure does, and it does underscore you are the developer's developer. You are the I mean that's a fun thing, but I do like this, and I'm gonna go ahead and print out this welcome to ThursdAGE. I said welcome to with the big wrecking ball in the background. I'm gonna
Yeah.
send it upstairs to the tattoo salon. And I'm going to, and I'm going to sign your name to it. I'm going to give him a thing or two. I'm going to give him a piece of your mind.
And now I no longer feel the need to try and create poker chess because Stan has such a perfect example of what poker chess should look like.
See, that is great. He has absolved you of any responsibility to create that particular abomination. But I do want to say this. We have two missions, and one of them is to head over to Pinterest, look for Ronan Troy, and just say hello and do all just Pinterest me. And then head over to our YouTube, Green Ronin Publishing, and like all of our videos and subscribe to the channel. It also gives us it's a very physical mechanism, a physical way to support our efforts because it gets us closer to all the benefits and things that come with a lot of people watching and engaging. So I dig it 100%. And with that, I think that we have actually made up the extra time. We have done nearly we're at about a full hour. I think our work here is done. How about you, Owen?
I'm just hopping from one project to the next project, so it doesn't make a difference to me if I'm here at this computer for the next few hours, regardless of what we do. But if you're done, that's fine.
Well, everybody, we have now created a new program. It's called Just Watch Owen. So we're just going to hang out and just watch you.
I am not above starting an OnlyFans page that's just watching me work. It would be boring, but
yeah, all that naked creativity.
Yeah, there we go. Naked creativity. That could be my tagline.
Well, maybe we'll give that idea a little time to incubate. That we'll kind of workshop it a bit. I think that that sort of nude inspiration might be best sort of to allow to percolate behind the scenes, or at least behind sort of maybe some a well placed fantasy age signage or something. Jason says, "I will give you dollars." All right, well, think about that again. As Owen said,
Duly noted.
Yeah, duly noted. Hey, everyone.
If people want to give me money now, you can always go to my Patreon, which there's a link to in nearly every article from OwenKCStevens.com.
Fantastic. Yeah, so go to OwenKCStevens.com too and just read some of the stuff you do come up with some phenomenal content that is free, but you're going to get sucked into that Patreon because it's Rain says spicy age. All right, we'll get to work on that. Everyone, again, thank you so much. You are all a true delight, and we do look forward to seeing you. Make sure to go check out all those things. Check out Owen's blog, and just and think of those connections between really two great tastes that taste awful together, and we'll continue it'll be our new thing. I'm looking forward to the future. So thank you, Owen, and everyone else. Have a phenomenal rest of the week, and we will see you next, if not Monday, we'll see you next Thursday with ThursdAGE with Owen Casey Stevens. Thanks, everyone.